All right, you guys, we are talking more about graphing linear inequalities, and then we are going to talk about graphing systems of equations, okay? That might sound difficult, but if you remember from last year, systems of equations are just where you're graphing more than one equation, okay, and seeing where they intersect. So not too bad. Okay, so let's start with graphing our linear inequalities. That's the whole front page. Okay, so what I want us to do is underneath number one, let's go ahead and write our steps for graphing. Okay, if you remember, our steps for graphing inequalities and equations are pretty much the same. There's just a couple extra ones when you're dealing with inequalities. Okay, so steps for graphing inequalities and equations when they're in slope-intercept form, which these guys are, is you are going to start with your y-intercept. Okay, that is your starting point. Start with your y-intercept. Okay, our second step is going to be to use slope to count to the next point. Okay, our third step, okay, this is where it's specific to graphing inequalities. Our third step is going to be decide whether it's a solid or dotted line. Okay, we talked about that last class. Is it a solid or a dotted line? You're gonna figure that out based on the sign. Okay, and then our fourth one is going to be to shade. Again, based on that inequality sign. Okay, so those are all of our steps for graphing. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we're gonna start it the exact same way. We want to identify, because these are all in slope-intercept form, we want to identify our slope and our y-intercept. Okay, so remember our slope is the number that is right in front of our x. So what number is right in front of our x here? Find the x. What's the number that's right in front of it? We have 9, or we can rewrite this as 9 over 1 to help with our rise over run when counting our slope, right? So we can always turn it into a fraction. Okay, so now what is our y-intercept? What is the number that doesn't have an x attached to it? That is positive 5. Okay, so we have positive 5 for our y-intercept. Whoops. Our 9 for our slope. Okay, now we can go ahead and graph it. So steps for graphing, we always start with our y-intercept. So that positive 5 is going to be my starting point. So I'm going to find positive 5 on my y-axis. That's right there. Okay, and now we're going to use our slope to count to our next point. Okay, well, tell me what is going to happen when I start from my starting point and then I go up 9. Okay, I'm going to go way off the graph, but that's okay because we can always go backwards. So instead of going up 9, let's go down 9. Okay, so now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That'll put you in negative 4. Okay, now we need to go backwards 1. Because our slope is a positive 9, we need to make sure that our line is still going up and to the right. Okay, so going backwards, go down 9 and back 1, making sure that that line still stays positive for a positive slope. Okay, before you connect those dots with your line, we need to decide, is this a solid or a dotted line? Okay, we're going to figure this out by looking at our sign. Okay, this is less than or equal to. So is this going to be a solid or a dotted line? That is going to be a solid because there's a little extra, right, or equal to. So connect it with a solid line. Okay, put arrows at the end. And we are not quite done because we still have our last step, which is to shade. So this is saying, sorry, just knocked the camera holder again. So this is saying that y, so looking at our y values, our y-axis, is less than or equal to. Okay, where are my y values getting less than? Am I going to shade up or down if it's less than? I'm going to shade down, right? So shading down means that I shade this entire side of the line. And beautiful. Okay, let's do number 2. So first thing, we're going to start it off the exact same way. So our slope and our y-intercept, let's identify those. Okay, what is my slope? What is the number or the fraction that is right in front of the x? So find the x, and then what is the number right in front of it? Okay, so there's my x, so I know that my slope is -7/4. Okay, and we don't need to rewrite that as a fraction because it's already 1, so we already have our rise over run. Okay, so now we need to identify our y-intercept. So what is the number that doesn't have an x attached to it? It's that -3. And that is going to be our starting point. Okay, so finding -3 on our y-axis, we're going to put our first point right there. Okay, so now our slope is negative, so we want to go down 7. But again, what's going to happen when I go down 7? We're going to go off the graph, but that's totally fine. Let's go backwards. So instead of going down 7, let's go up 7. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, which way do I need to go to make sure that my line is going down and to the right because it's a negative slope? So I would end at +4 right here. Now I need to go back 4, right? Run 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Because my slope needs to be negative. That line needs to be going down and to the right. Beautiful. Okay, before we connect those 2 points, we need to ask ourselves, is this going to be a solid or a dotted line? That's going to be a dotted, right? There's no little or equals to. So this one is a dotted line. Okay, connect it with arrows. And now we need to shade. So again, this is saying that it's less than. Okay, y is less than. So where are my y values getting less than or smaller? Am I going to shade up or down? I'm going to shade down. Those are where they're getting smaller, which means I'm going to shade this entire side of the line. Beautiful. Whoa, it's not focusing. There we go. Sorry about that. I didn't even notice that it wasn't focusing. Okay, beautiful. So that's what that graph looks like. Okay, let's do number 3. So let's identify our 2 things to help us graph it. Find our points is our slope and our y-intercept. Okay, so what is our slope? What is the number that is right in front of our x? -2. Okay, or you can rewrite it as -2/1. So you know that rise over run. And now what is our y-intercept? What's the number that's not attached to an x? +5, which is going to be our starting point. So find +5 on your y-axis. That's right there. Okay, now we're going to use our slope, which is down 2 and over 1. Okay, so from our starting point, go down 2, 1, 2, and over 1. You can even add a couple more if you want. Down 2, over 1. Cool. Okay, so now let's ask ourselves, looking at the sign now, we're not shading yet, but we're just looking at that sign. Is this going to be a solid or a dotted line? Okay, that one is going to be solid because I do have that or equals to. Okay, so connect it with a solid line. Okay, arrows at the end, and now we need to decide which way to shade. Okay, so this is saying, again, y is less than. Okay, where are my y values getting smaller or less than? Am I going to shade down? Am I going to shade up? I'm going to shade down because that's where they are getting smaller. Okay, so that entire side of the graph is shaded. Beautiful. Okay, let's look at number 4, last inequality that we're going to graph. You guys are probably professionals by now. Okay, so let's identify again our slope and our y-intercept. Okay, what is my slope? What is the number that's right in front of that x? 2 over 5. Okay, don't need to rewrite it as a fraction, it already is one. What is my y-intercept? Positive 4, which is my starting point, so find positive 4 on your y-axis, that's right there. Okay, now use your slope to count to your next point, so our rise is 2, and we're going to run 5. So from our starting point, we're going to go up 2, 1, 2, and over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we can even go backwards just to put another point on this side. So go down 2, and then back 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Beautiful. Okay, before we connect those points, let's go ahead and look at our sign and identify, is this going to be a solid or a dotted line? This one is going to be another solid because we have that or equals to. Okay, so solid line, arrows at the end. And which way are we going to shade this time? So this is saying y is greater than or equal to. Where are my y values getting bigger or greater than? Am I going to shade up or am I going to shade down? This time I'm going to shade up, which tells me that this whole side of the graph is shaded. Beautiful. Okay, let's go to the next page. I know 2 pages of notes seems like a lot, but that's just because we have graphs. Okay, so now we're solving systems of equations by graphing. What this just means, a system just means more than one. Okay, so when it's asking us to solve by graphing, that means the answer, okay, so write this down. The answer or solution to a system of equations is the coordinate point where they intersect. So where do those 2 lines from our 2 equations intersect on the graph? That is our answer. So that's what we're trying to figure out with these guys. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph them. Okay, so I'm going to actually use 2 different colors here. Okay, let's do this light green for our first equation. Okay, so looking at our first equation, what is my slope? Or first, what is my y-intercept? Because that is my starting point. So what's my y-intercept on my first equation? It's going to be that positive 2, right? The plus 2. So everybody put your first point at plus 2. Okay, now let's use our slope. Well, what is our slope? It's going to be that -4 or -4 and over 1. All right, so from our starting point, let's go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1. Okay, if we were to go down 4, we'd go off the graph. If we were to go up 4, we'd go off the graph. So that's good. Okay, connect those 2, right? They're just equations, so we don't need to shade or anything. Okay, so that's our first equation. That's our first line. So now let's do pink for our second equation. So looking at our second equation, what's my y-intercept? What's my starting point? It's going to be that -1, so put your first point at -1. And then what is my slope for my pink equation? It's going to be -1 or down 1 and over 1. So from our starting point, let's go down 1, over 1, boom. Could even keep going. But we found the answer, right? Once we connect those 2, where is that point that they cross? Okay, because that is our answer. Okay, so our answer is that guy right there. Let's write it as a coordinate point. So x comma y, our x is 1, and our y is -2. So our answer that you're actually trying to find is 1, -2. Okay, beautiful. Let's do the same thing for 6. Okay, so our first equation, it's going to be the little light blue, green, whatever equation. So what is my y-intercept for this guy? It's going to be that -1. So first point at -1. And then what is my slope? What's the number that's right in front? 2/3. So we're going to go up 2 because it's rise over run. So 1, 2, and then over 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we can even go backwards. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And there we go. There is our green equation. Okay, now let's graph our pink equation. So what is my y-intercept for my pink equation? -4, right? Number without an x. And then what is my slope? It's going to be -1/3. So we're going to go down 1 and over 3. So 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay, have we found a point that connects yet? No. So this is where going backwards really helps, because we can go up 1 and now backwards 3, which, boom, gives us our point where they intersect. Okay, so what is that coordinate point where they intersect? Okay, so look at your x value first. So we get -3. And then y is also -3. So that is our answer. Beautiful. Okay, we are going to skip number 8, so don't worry about number 8. So let's just do number 7. So last example right here. Okay, so let's graph our first equation. What is my y-intercept for this first equation? We get +2. Okay, now what is my slope for my first equation? Get +5 or 5/1, right? So we can go up 5, 1, 2, 3. Oh, no, we can't go up 5, so let's go backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But in order for it to be positive, we got to go back 1, right? That line is still going up and to the right, so it's +5. Okay, so there's our first equation. Now let's graph our second equation. What is my y-intercept for this guy? The number without the x attached. -2. Okay, and then what is my slope? The number right in front of the x. It's going to be 1, right? So we get up 1 over 1. Okay, up 1 over 1. Looks like we're going away from my line, so maybe let's try going backwards. Down 1 and back 1. Beautiful, we did it. We found the line where they intersect, or not the line, the point where they intersect. Now let's just write that as a coordinate point. So that coordinate point is x is -1, y is -3. So -1, -3. And that is our answer. Okay, those are your notes.